So we've talked to a couple different partners, including the one we're currently using, about what else we can do with the information we're getting. You know, right now I have seen where we can translate some of those service tickets into a procurement portion where we could like replace inventory, but not a step further. I love that you asked about preventative maintenance, because that's one of the things on our list too. We asked about, we could say, hey, if we recognize that this resident is actually on top of their air filter change, I don't want to just say building 7 is going to replace next week, and then we're really spending extra money on things that we really did just replace. And so if we can have a tick in the back that has multiple areas that it's checking off the list for us, that would be really excellent. I think there is a question.
Real quick to add to that, sorry, we utilize in our property management software that same analysis where we're looking at turn time schedules, what work orders are occurring more often, more frequently, why, and then digging in. Still a little bit of the human capital at that point, but one of our goals is to dump out as good of data as possible. Again, clean data is really the goal at this point, to then put into like a Python system or a predictive AI or an AI machine and create that forward-looking plan. That's one of the things that we're working really hard to try to accomplish. We're not, specifically MEB is not there yet, something that I think is a real big game changer. There are vendors that are very excited about predictive analytics on when to order materials and supplies based on usage. That's another forward-leading, I'm gonna coin the new, or not coin, I'll use the new term, contact or construction technology. That's the next big wave as well, but we'll dive into that. But yeah, PMSs and both mobile apps are starting to really try to leverage good data coming in on overall experiences.
Great, we'll take the one further question, then we'll keep going.
When you guys rolled this out, what was your rollout phase? Was it a region at a time, or did you just roll the entire company out? And then what was the learning curve for your team to get fully integrated with it?
Well, this is a great question, because it's something that we were talking about prior to, is implementation is a challenge. It's a huge challenge, and especially because we have people like Matt, who is very in the details and a very good understanding of what we're talking about, right? He's like, can explain it in a way that I can understand it, which is awesome. So, but not everybody's gonna be at the same page on adoption, and but not only that, is when someone like us who is focused in on a future forward technology, we might have gotten there and ready for it, but if we didn't take the time to collaborate on the forefront with HR and how this is going to impact the service that we're asking for, how this is going to impact the associates and their work, if we didn't consult with our policy group to make sure that what we are saying you have to do now is in our policy, that we can actually say, oh, consult the policy. This, no, it's actually, you do have to do this now, you know, not in a bad way, but policy. But we have to think about things like, do we offer an allowance for bring your own device, since now we have to have a device? We, you know, so there's so many different people involved, and if there's a communication element back to the resident, we had to give guidance on how we can best communicate with the resident. We had to have a thoughtful approach that says, hey, regional leadership, are you comfortable with this service person making these types of comments before, not in an individual basis, but before we rolled out. So we had to do a lot of thoughtful approach. So we'll say that it was a slow roll at the beginning. We did, and it was a big change for us. And I'm sure it's a big change for anybody when you first go from literally printing out 2 pieces of paper to using, you know, an interactive component on your mobile phone. So we did a large pilot of and ownership. So we have a little bit unique setup where we do have some ownership, about 50-50, some ownership, we have some third-party management, we have joint ventures, we have a really cool mix in our portfolio. And we started with an ownership group who had buy-in, and then we were able to see, touch, feel, test, discuss, and really go through how we wanted to implement it across the board. And so then next came like PMS integrations. We wanted to make sure that was on lockdown before we went everywhere. So that's what we did, is we had a group that actually used the platform for about 6 to 8 months first. And then we did, let's see how it goes with adding 5 more, 10 more, and then we started going 30 more, 30 more, 30 more, because we wanted to have the right communication strategy. And so we took the care and consideration. It was a rollout, right? It went from, I will never forget like when we did it, because I had a due date of my son, and I was like, we getting this done, right? So Terry's in the audience, I don't know if you know, but I was like, we had 6 months to get it across the goal line once we started going portfolio wide, and then we had to roll out 30 at a time and 30 at a time. So
and we all know maintenance guys love technology. They're the first ones to dive right into it, right? They're super excited about it. A case study that and similar, right? We roll out initiatives slowly, but one of the things that we're fairly passionate about is peer education. If your peer is having success with it, being able to partner that person up with somebody that's maybe a late adopter or a lagger on that bell curve, it allows them the opportunity to ask those questions kind of in a safe, free environment. Hey, how does it work, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that was really interesting is I had a conversation and the maintenance guy just did not want to engage in it. He was like, it's too hard, it's too time consuming. And I said, do you set your fantasy football team up on your phone? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay, then we're done talking. If you can set up your fantasy football team on your phone, you can input a work order or follow-up notes in your phone. So tying it back to real life examples. We all unfortunately are tied to our cell phones. You can adopt easily. It's just, again, trying to give them examples of how to be successful with their current tech.
I want to call out that I did not actually answer her question, because I got so excited about when we did implement actual mobile maintenance. So the reason we focused on new automations is because we did see such a great benefit from making more efficiencies for our on-site teams. And so once we had a portfolio-wide rollout, once we were really solid, we realized, our service teams do so much more than service requests. They do so much more. They do unit turns, they do preventative maintenance, they do asset preservation. They do so much that's not utilized yet when we first rolled out for service tickets only. And so we then were like, well, what's next? What can we do? And so we did a lot of really cool things with automation for kind of taking those checklists they were already doing. So they had paper checklists for daily opening checklists. I picked up the grounds, I opened the models, I did this, and this. So we could easily translate that into a checklist. And then we had that automate on the days that they were open. So every single day it's automated for the days they're open, it's assigned to people, and you could assign different tasks to different individuals. And now you are responsible for these things, and you give a check mark. You get a reminder, right? I love my reminders on my phone, I use them all the time. But we just kept kind of adding layers, right? And you mentioned how you're always trying to solve a need, and so we have some really great innovative leaders on our team, and there was like a task force, I guess you would call it, that kind of popped up one year, and we were all a little bit mad at how intrusive it was, because it didn't make it into our initiatives list, but it was really, really something that we focused on that year. But we wanted to reduce turn cost and reduce turn time. So we said, how can we leverage our technology to make an impact like that? And so we thought, hey, everyone's using a paper checklist to do, we have in policy they're supposed to do a notice to vacate walk, but how are we verifying they're doing it? And are we giving good instruction to all of the people on all of the sites every time on what to do with that information once you get it? So when we were able to make notice to vacate walks automated based on a trigger in our PMS, there wasn't like, oh, I forgot to tell you that 12-1 gave their notice. It wasn't anything in a lack of communication. It was an automation. So that's really helped us be way more efficient and not have things fall through the cracks with notice to vacate walks, move out vacant inspections. That's translated into better deposit accounting, so things like that.
And Amy, you and I talked too a little bit about automation based on events. So can you talk a little bit about that, how you've utilized that in your portfolio?
So one of the things we do have is like a ready-made emergency plan, right? So if we have communities in Florida, we have in Iowa, places that are going to maybe freeze and bust things, so we've got some kind of ready-made action plans for emergency or natural disasters. And so something that we can do is when there is a national alert for a certain type of event, like a hurricane, we can launch our emergency plan. So we can have a pre-recorded voicemail that goes out proactively to all the residents at the community that says, oh, we want to make sure you're aware this is coming, and here's what steps you can do to prepare, and your safety is our number one, right? We're telling the residents what we would like to tell them. We're also immediately invoking a checklist to make sure that we, for the freezing, we're you have to do this much snow and salt, whatever snow sand, whatever it's called. Salt. Thanks, Iowan. Yeah, I'm from Texas. We don't do that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, you did for a while.
We did for 3 days.
Yeah, I was
2
there.
years ago.
Yeah, I was there when that happened. It was awesome.
And maybe not so well, right? Yeah, you all were stuck at home.
No.
So those are things, it takes time to set it up, and it takes time to prepare. But when they're ready, when you need it, it makes you make sure that you don't miss things and that someone didn't forget to do this, that, and the other, and it just makes you make sure that you're ready.
Great examples, Amy, and I think there's some good takeaways. I saw a lot of notes being taken. There's some great low-hanging fruit of things that you can do that can make immediate impact. And so I think we've had some great questions in the audience, and it's kind of queued up some of the conversation we were going to have. But I wanted to open it up to both of you. If there's any other successes that you wanted to share with the audience that haven't already been covered.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that's really important as we move forward through this is predictive analytics. So really, when we come in and acquire a building, understanding the actual age of the asset and the materials on the asset, we're utilizing that to attempt to create as close to a predictive analytic model of the actual expense management, capital expenditure side of the building for our clients. One of the things that I think is really exciting, again, I'm from Arizona, so when, and I was in maintenance, when the AC goes out, nobody's happy, and ever. One of the things that I really want to try to figure out is a way to identify when an AC unit is scheduled to fail and preventatively get in front of it. Because not only are we creating a better resident experience, but we're also creating a better employee experience. That's something that we're not really talking about. I don't know if you've ever gone home and then gotten called right back into the office and then had to lug R22 canisters up a ladder to get on a roof at 7 o'clock at night. It's awful. It's awful all day long. If I can give that maintenance tech a work order and say, hey, apartment 1000 AC unit needs a new run cap. It's going to fail in 2 months, but we're going to take it early and we're going to replace it early. Yeah, we've lost a little bit of the life of the run cap, but we're okay with that. Not only are we going to not have a ticked off resident at 7 o'clock when it's 110 in their apartment, but also we don't have an angry employee. That's the next generation of this predictive AI that really should be setting goals, strategies, precedent on what the asset should be doing and being managed to, based on a bunch of data. This is stuff that they can identify trends that humans cannot. We're identifying medicines currently that have never been thought of to work in preventative treatments. And by the way, the medical doctors that are identifying these trends and analysis, they don't understand why it works. But AI does. So AI has already surpassed us. There are cancer treatments and diagnoses that are happening in real time that the trend is being identified by AI, and we don't understand why it works. That's scary. It's cool, it's scary. I want to apply that to maintenance, but I think we can do that in better running the buildings.
So Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about, so we've got a lot of different topics to still discuss, but I know we're here to talk about AI and automation, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't bring up centralization. And that's definitely, and I see a lot of nodding heads, I think that's something that's on everybody's mind. There's been a lot of focus on leasing and admin automation, but I think that next layer is certainly maintenance. So You guys want to discuss maybe your thoughts on centralization around maintenance?
Yeah, so we've seen at the top of the hour, are you still here? The robot people, we at BH, we are not, ripping and replacing people, right? So we, just like we mentioned, we're trying to bring efficiency to the work, and we're trying to do more with the staff that we have. Because I don't know about you, but we have experienced labor shortage in the last few years, and then it was already hard to find the right fit for a service team member. It's a very skilled position, and it's a unique person that's going to be able to do these individual tasks, right? It's hard. It's a lot that we're asking them to do. You have to know how to work on an appliance. We want you to be pool certified, and we also want you to be HVAC certified. So those are a lot of different certifications. We can train you and get you there, but it's also really hard to find people with the right qualifications, especially at different levels of management. And so what we really wanted to do, and it's the buzzword of centralization is definitely new, but like, borrowing from other properties is absolutely not. I don't know about you, but it's like 15 years ago that we're like, okay, I've got this plan where you don't have to take call every week. You're gonna be able to do it every 6 weeks, but you're gonna need to help service these 5 communities, right? So when it's your weekend, it's gonna be your weekend, right? So that's a centralization in and of itself. And so that I don't want people to be scared that says if we're centralizing efforts, really we're just making things more efficient and smarter, and we're using our talent in a better way that is honestly more meaningful for them. Because you said you wanted to do a good job, you wanted to be efficient, you wanted, if someone was looking at your ticket time and your stats, you wanted them to look clean and sharp, right? You want to be on the good list. So if you can use, you should definitely talk about some of the stuff you were talking about earlier, but if you can use everything you have to make the time they spend the best time they could be spending, then that's really what centralization should be doing.
Yeah, automation and centralization kind of go hand in hand for us. So one of the things that we believe in, again, is not removing human capital, but creating better human capital. So one of the programs that we're exploring is a virtual maintenance training program. So literally VR head goggles go on, you can train multiple people. You no longer have, the angry maintenance supervisor that doesn't really want to train. Well, now we have a virtual assistant that helps teach electrical engineering side of things. How do you replace common appliances? How do you better troubleshoot certain areas? That's really where we see centralization going for us is, again, we may be able to do more because we train better, we train faster, and they're more efficient. That's the end goal for us. And for us, we feel like centralization really starts on the front end of training and getting the best people out there.
Fantastic. So we did talk about successes, and I think we have talked about a couple of challenges as well, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more. So when we were having our prep call, we talked a little bit about implementation, which was a question that was asked. But Matt, would you mind kind of talking a little bit about your approach at MEB, because it is a little different than BH, where BH, Amy sits on a strategic group that's handling implementations, where maybe at BH, I'm sorry, not BH, at MEB, it's a little bit different. So how does your company approach that, and how is that a challenge?
Yeah, so, and we don't have a specific team designed for rollouts. We have a lot of different components that come together. One of the things that we engage in is a program called Core Operations, and it's all of the major stakeholders, HR, accounting, operations, even down to construction management. And we all will be able to vet and kind of voice our thoughts and opinions on the program. Sometimes they go over like a lead boat. I've done that once or twice. And other times you get these really in-depth and great questions that provide you the opportunity to better vet the process or program that you're attempting to roll out. Because you don't think about, well, do I need a plan, a budget for a device amount, right? So we utilize that as our initial step to make sure that we're focusing on good development and growth. And then it really falls into kind of the operators that maybe are rolling it out. One of the things that we do is we get all buy-in from our RPMs, and really we want them to ask us the tough questions before they get asked the tough questions by their associates. Every strategy, regardless of what it is, will either be successful or die with communication. If it's bad communication, I don't care if it's Google, right? it's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good rollout. So we really strive to get those peer buy-ins. We strive to get the buy-in from our on-site staff members and challenge them to ask really in-depth, informed questions, and then slowly roll that out. We troubleshoot it aggressively. We say what worked, what didn't work, kind of an after-actions report for those of you who've been in the military. Really, and again, the big thing is we're almost agnostic to everything. And that's something I would encourage all of you to be. Even if I come up with an idea, I need to be truly agnostic to whether or not it's going to be successful and really work at the program. And I need to be the first one to criticize myself or criticize the program if it is working or if it's not working. I want an implementation team. You want? What are you doing?
Well, let's kind of wrap up our conversation on some of the fun stuff. So where do we see the future innovation of maintenance, AI, and automation?
You first, lady.
Well, I am excited about just the future. I mean, you threw out a stat. What was the stat you said about the AI companies as a whole?
Oh, yeah. So in 2020, AI on the private sector, there was $71 billion raised.
It's so dumb. That's so dumb.
$71 billion. And by the way, that's private equity. That's not what China, that's not what the United States, that's not what the European Union all devoted to it. $71 billion.
I was saying earlier, I feel like I could probably talk all 45 minutes on like what we want to see because I don't have to build it, so someone else is going to. But I love the concept of all of the aspects that we're touching coming together. And I'm not saying I need one software to build them all, but we all need to work better together on our APIs and connections, but also on our security and protocols, right? So I would love to be able to have software that really does cross all the barriers. Like when we're talking about procurement, we're talking about preventative maintenance, we're talking about things that are very intuitive to like genuinely understand the business that we're doing and to be able to have a full collaboration of how best to tie these things in. As we have talked to different partners, we see some people have great ideas on this area, and some people have amazing concept on this one, but then we are still having to say, well, since y'all don't integrate, I'm gonna do this work over here, then I'm gonna log in over there, and I'm gonna do this work over here. And while I do think we need to have good data in, good hands and eyes on what we're doing, we've gotta make it easier for people to keep it all going together and moving forward.
Yeah, amen. For us, I would say construction technology, as I alluded to kind of in the middle of the program, construction technology is really, I think, the next wave of this after main tech? Is that what we're pointing? Main tech, okay. Construction technology. So one of the things that's happening real time right now is as-builts are being created and refined and generated by AI. There are a number of groups that actually have individuals walking units with cameras strapped to their hard hats, and it's actually mapping the construction that's occurring to ensure that it lines up with as-built. That's something that I think is really exciting. Again, you're getting better product faster, and again, utilizing the AI side of it. Automation in scheduling is the next big one for me, really. It's my goal is to have my maintenance supervisor no longer needing to sit in the office ordering parts from HD Supply, Lowe's, whomever, but that he shows up either through maybe a centralized program, he shows up and the part's already there and it's ready to go.
He or she.
He or she, yes, absolutely. And then CapEx planning. We have some exciting things that we partner with at MEV, some vendors that we're very excited about that utilize drone technology to look at images of roofing tiles, and they can actually age and plan when would be an appropriate time to replace asphalt shingles, roofing tiles, and that's done through computer vision AI, and that's really exciting. And again, that's a heck of a good answer, by the way, when the client's like, do I really need to replace my roof? And you're like, well, AI says it's, probably should. That's a really bulletproof answer back to a client if you've ever been asked that question. So, yeah, there's 1,000 fields that we can go down, but Those are kind of the top three for me.
And I think we have a question up here, Paul.
I just didn't hear the end of your sentence. You said they're walking around with hand hats so that everything lines up with.
As builds, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So architect drawings.
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance, yeah, correct, yeah.
Are there any other questions out there? Great. We've got lots of questions.
Hey, I
Great.
like that, that's good.
It's fantastic.
Hi. My question is a little bit more about what you spoke on. Our maintenance techs on site, our maintenance supervisors, they're all doers, they're all action people. So how do you get their buy-in for adopting into the whole automation and AI, and even the virtual training, we're rolling it out as well, but they have to still pause and take the time to do those things and to learn those processes. So what are some tips that you guys have for getting the people to actually take action?
Recognize it right up front and call it out. Yes, we have to ask you to step away, maybe come in, strap a headset on, right? They always give you kind of a shy look at first when that happens, but recognize it and acknowledge it. But for me, it's really selling the data side of it. We know this will improve your experience. We know it will cut down on your turn times. We know it will make things easier for you. For the existing maintenance staff, new maintenance staff, it's a safe place to ask questions. It's a safe place to learn, develop, and grow. Those are kind of the things that we recommend. And again, there's always on a bell curve of adoption, there's always a group that's never gonna want to accept technology. They're never gonna get behind it. It's about 10%, give or take. My recommendation to all of you is, and this is something we do as an organization, do not spend time on them. I know, blew your mind. 10%, that's nothing compared to, and then you're sacrificing the other 90%. I hate to say it that way. Give them the opportunity, give them the tools, give them the respect, give them everything that you can to get them to adopt, but do not kill yourself for them because your time is being lost on 90% of the people that actually do or potentially could get on board with the program.
I will say too that one of the things that you mentioned earlier, he had a lot of zingers, so I love the term that he said, peer adoption. And so when we were rolling out, we've had communities that we own the same community for 30 years and the same person worked there for 30 years, right? So I know that there are, and again, we thought this might be hard to do with these people who've done the same thing all the time, but I actually think that what I found, because I did a lot of the trainings, like sat on them myself, I think that people really appreciated being heard, being allowed to ask questions, and throwing some things out there. Like when I was on site and touring a community property, if I had an objection I knew all the time, I would say the objection before they did. But like, I bet you're thinking that that pantry looks really small, but did you know that you could fit 700 boxes of Cinnamon Toast Crunch in there? I don't need 700 boxes of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, so like, it's plenty big enough for me, right? So if you call out, this is gonna be a big difference, but I think that you're gonna love it, and so from this community and this, and then you literally have like peers. It's like, reach out to this person. They were a naysayer, and now they're our biggest friend. Things like that.
We'll take one more question.
This kind of goes back to the centralization, but with the better data that you're capturing on your maintenance personnel, do you see a move to get better specialization so that's less of the jack of all trades and you get to share those skills among a region of a portfolio instead of having to hire for everything?
That's actually exactly what I want.
Yeah.
I'd love to have someone who's like, we recognize that you are so good at appliances, small appliances. We recognize you're so skilled at this, that, and the other, right? Plumbing is your jam, right?
Yeah.
And so if we were able to have an understanding of who should be assigned for which and then have an auto assignment based on skill, but also understanding, and have to be dynamic and not static, where we could say, you're really good at plumbing, but you also have like 97% of the work orders right now. So like there still has to be a fairness to it. But yeah, that's something that we'd love to do. We have a partner who has talked about that for a long time, but we haven't actually been able to leverage that. We have some auto assignments that we can do, but not a dynamic change in based on the type of work order coming in to be able to shift to a different type of person, like a shared pool of tickets.
That's a great question. And one of the things that we look at is baselining work order. So really understanding, hey, a 1992 built building, this work order should take 30 minutes based on all of the data that we have. This guy's doing it in 15 minutes. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, we don't know. Let's get in, let's dig in. Maybe our data is a little bit off, right? And so I think baselining and really understanding what it takes to complete a work order is a valuable tool from the PMS side, and understanding the time frames, turn schedules, and the work orders.
Well, great. I know we had a few more questions in the audience. I highly encourage you to come up and ask Matt and Amy your questions after the session. But really appreciate everybody coming in. As I mentioned at the beginning, again, always trying to find technology that solves problems. I had a great meeting yesterday with one of the supplier partners on the floor that is solving for maintenance, AI and automation. So there's a lot of technology that's out there that we coined main tech. So we certainly encourage
Could also
everybody.
be serve tech.
Serve